Is that the greatest offense in the history of the game?
Yes. I mean, yeah. No, I mean, I think it was. And I say that, because there's obviously been some great offenses. You played on some great offenses. Yeah, I mean, the Denver team, whatever you know.
07 Pats lost the Super Bowl, though, Julian.
I know, Sam. He's a Giants fan.
But
sir.
It's a team sport. It's a team sport. But the reason I say that, Jules, is because we did it at a time when you weren't supposed to be able to do that. Like, now, everybody kind of does it. Like, everybody plays we played the game a different way. Back then, everybody thought, well, you got to run the football to win. You got to run the football to be successful. And we, threw caution to the wind and said, no, you don't. Like, if you're good enough, if you got the players, if you can execute. And so we kind of ushered in a new era of football. And what we did consistently for 3 years, coupled with the players that we had, right? I mean, I think that always is a part of it. We had great players as well as we consistently played well. But over 500 yards, 500 points, 3 straight years, in an era where you just didn't see that sort of stuff. And then again, to usher in what we see as the NFL now, I still think, I would put that offense up against anybody that's ever played in this era or that era. Like, I believe that offense could step into this era and we would set records in this era. That's how good I think we were.
They revolutionized the game. They basically, they had the offense that every offense is now. I mean, this West Coast, you got a little bit more this run game with like the Kyle Shanahan stuff, but the spread them and shred them.
Yeah.
That's the greatest show on turf. And it almost it was almost an advantage because these teams were built to stop the run. It's kind of like when the old Niners would go out and play in the 80s when Bill Walsh would have the fullback catching little diagonals and they're getting their run game through short passes. Yeah. These teams were built with the old 46, the old Bear defense, these big-ass linebackers. Like, they weren't made to cover.
Yeah.
So it's, like, extraordinarily, like, revolutionary for these coaches that actually implemented this system to go on. And, it's changed the game. It's changed how players are. It's changed the sizes of players, the speed of players. Because of that offense and that West Coast, now you got defensive linemen that are running 4.4, that are 223 pounds, 235 pounds, when they used to be 260, big old dudes that would plug the middle of that, that field. It's changed. And I do believe that they could step into this game right now and be an elite team with, I think you'd probably be better because you wouldn't, like, you sneeze on a quarterback now, like you get a penalty.
Right. You sneeze on a quarterback now, you give him COVID. That's what happens. No, it's so true. And Marshall was really such a weapon because he could run the ball, but then he's as good as any receiver. He was unstoppable.
Yeah, he was,
matchup problem.
He was the key piece, we had good players all over and could have been successful, but Marshall was different. And it was unlike anybody else, like you said, that played. We could put him anywhere. He was our ultimate pawn. We could line him up outside. He could run routes like a wide receiver. It was, and Julian, back to your point about the best offense, that I think what also really made us special was the way we played offense. Like, we would have 225 pass plays going into a game. It was our level of execution and timing. Even though we had great players, we played so efficiently and we did so many things efficiently and well and different that to me is, I think, what sets us apart from some of the other teams. Not that there weren't other unbelievable offenses that you can make your argument for. It was just, we were just a finely tuned machine. And it was all about timing, and we let it go. And then here comes Isaac just running out of nowhere. And we had the guys to be able to run a system like that, where it wasn't just, let me throw it up to Isaac and he'll jump over somebody and make a play. It was designed in a certain way that really made that group unique with all the things that we did.
Steps and timing, the old West Coast. And the fact that they could have 225 plays a week, that tells you how smart their players are to be able to execute that many plays. So that means everyone's got to work together. And if you have a team that's smart, that's the reason why we won a lot. We had guys that could change personnel groups, different, formations, and you scheme up all this stuff. That's an advantage. A lot of teams can't do that. A lot of teams have, 14, and there's different philosophy in how to coach. A lot of guys say, hey, this is what we do. We do what we do, and come beat us. It's just there's different philosophy. That's a testament of smart football play.
No question, because, 225 plays, you can't practice 225 pass plays in a week. Like, you don't get enough reps in practice. So, we would have plays that we would run in games and we'd throw touchdowns on that we never ran in practice.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
To your point, Jules, it would be like we draw it up and we talk about it. And these guys were so smart and were willing to put in the time and go, okay, I'll learn that play even though we didn't run it in practice. Sure enough, defense gives us something. Mike wants to call it, and our job is to go execute it. And so that kind of stuff was so much fun because it's like, how's somebody going to stop us? Like, we got all these plays, we got all these things to pull from, we got these great players, and then we got smart guys that no matter what we need to do in the moment, we can adjust and make those adjustments and go out and execute it. It was so much fun to be part of that group.
That's also, the coaches having a big trust in the players, because the reason why you rep all this stuff is throughout the week is so your coaches can sleep on Saturday before the game. They want to be able to see it. They want to see it. They want to see the execution or in the walkthrough or in the fact that a coach puts something in and trusts you to go out and do that. That means there's a trust between the players and coaches that was obviously so special that you guys are considered one of the best.
That trust was incredible.
We got to ask you.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, because the next year you play the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Tom is in kind of a similar situation as you're in. Do you see yourself in Tom a little bit that season, him stepping in for Drew Bledsoe?
Well, I mean, obviously a lot of correlations from the standpoint of, nobody really knew who we were. Nobody necessarily expected it. Drew, I think he just signed his $100 million contract or whatever, maybe the first $100 million man. And Trent had just signed his big contract with us when I ended up getting hurt. So I think there's definitely a lot of similarities there. You guys mentioned a little bit earlier, the difference was I had played a lot of football and, I was 28 years old at the time. Wasn't just a second year guy coming out of college to, hitting the scene. But of course, there's definitely some similarities to how it played out. And then the fact that it played out, so close together, within 2 years of each other, kind of the same thing happening. And then sure enough, they end up in the Super Bowl. And obviously Tom ends up leading his team to a win in the Super Bowl, a late win in the Super Bowl. So there were so many correlations.
And they beat you, or you guys beat them in the regular season.
Yep. We beat them in the regular season.
Then the Giants beat us in the regular, or we beat the Giants in the regular season. Then they beat it's crazy how history repeats itself.
Well, and then we got to ask you, Coach Dick Vermeil, known as a crier, how many times have you seen him cry?
You can't put a number on.
Wow.
One of my greatest stories was I remember we were in the little training camp, and it was right around the times that they had to make cuts. And, we had this guy on our team that was like the fifth string tight end. So everybody knew the guy wasn't making the team. Nothing personal. But everybody knew he wasn't making the team. And, I remember Dick Vermeil coming into our huddle after he had to release this guy. And so, for most of us, it's probably like, oh, they're releasing him. Good. I got a better shot to make the team. But Dick Vermeil's in the middle of this huddle in training camp and he's crying because he had to release our fifth team tight end. And we're like, what's going on here? What's really, but it was just kind of a peer inside of who Dick Vermeil was. He was all about his players. He wanted what was best for all the players. He wanted everybody to truly make the team. I know, how much this hurts me that this guy, because I think he's a great guy, will not be able to fulfill his dream. And so there was story after story like that with Dick Vermeil that he's just such a phenomenal individual. And I remember when I was playing for him, I talked to guys that played for him when he was a high school coach. And they would tell me how Dick would call him every 2 weeks. And they still had a great relationship. And, always wants to call and know what's going on. I mean, he is just such a unique individual that truly was, as a head coach should be, out for every single one of the players. That was the most important thing, is each one of these guys individually trying to help them to achieve the best of what they can achieve. And so I was very, very fortunate to be around a guy like that. And, I think my greatest compliment for him is that, when people ask me about my coaches, that's kind of the first guy that comes to mind, and I've had some great coaches over the years, but it's the first guy that comes to mind. And when I go back and think about it, what you have to realize is you can count my year before we won the Super Bowl, but, I was third string guy, whatever, wasn't in that role. I only played 1 year for Dick Vermeil. Like that year we won he retired right after that Super Bowl. So in my mind, the first thing I think is, oh yeah, Coach Vermeil is the coach I think about. Like we were together forever. We had this great relationship. And I have to actually sit back and go, my gosh, we were together for 1 year. That was the kind of impact that this man had on me in 1 year because of the person that he was more than the coach that he was. And that to me is probably the greatest compliment that I can give.